My name is Gerald Morrow. I'm 64 years old. I own 3 auto shops in Dayton, Ohio, and a handful of commercial properties I picked up over the years. Nothing flashy. I drove a used F-150, wore work boots to church, and fixed engines on weekends because I liked the feel of it. People in my neighborhood saw me as just a mechanic who got a little lucky. I let them think that that was the life I built, and someone I trusted was trying to end it. The night it started, I had just dropped Loretta off at the airport. She had a conference in Chicago, she said. Back Thursday, I kissed her cheek at the curb, watched her roll her bag through the automatic doors without looking back and put the truck in drive. My son Darnell was in the back seat. He was 8. Came to us late in life, a surprise I would not trade for anything in this world. Most evenings he talked the whole ride home about video games or baseball or whatever his teacher said that day. That night, he did not say a word. I checked the mirror. He was pressed into the far corner of the seat, knees pulled up, staring at nothing. "You okay back there?" He did not answer right away. I pulled onto the highway and tried again. "Darnell, talk to me, Dad." His voice came out barely above a whisper. "We can't go home tonight." I took the next exit and pulled over on a side street. Hazard lights on, turned around to look at him. His eyes were wet, not crying, just full. "Tell me what happened," I said. He took a breath like he was about to jump into cold water. "Last week, I woke up late and went to the kitchen to get water. Mom and Randall were in there." He stopped. She gave him a little bag, a Ziploc bag, with white powder in it. She didn't see me standing in the hallway. Next morning, I asked her what it was. She said baking soda for his apartment. He looked at me. "Dad, I know her lying face." That was her lying face. Randall Briggs, my daughter Rochelle's fiancé, 34 years old, good-looking, always had a firm handshake and a smooth answer for everything. Sat at my table every Sunday. Called me sir like he meant it. 8 months ago, I lent him $22,000 for a real estate deal he said was about to close. The deal never came up again. I kept my voice steady. "Is that everything?" "No." He wiped his nose on his sleeve this morning. Before school, Mom was in the shower, but talking loud on the phone. I heard her say tonight is the last night for the old man. She said the medicine soaked in enough. The hazard lights clicked in the silence. Click, click, click. I thought about the small white pill Loretta brought me every evening with a warm glass of milk for your heart, baby. She would sit on the arm of my chair and watch me drink every drop before she left the room. I had been dizzy for months. Vision blurring in the afternoons. The doctor she steered me toward last spring kept saying stress and age. I believed him because I believed her. I sat there for a moment, just breathing. Then I put the truck in drive and did not go home. I drove past our street, 2 blocks further, and parked in the shadow of an empty lot across from the house. Killed the engine. Told Darnell to stay low and stay quiet. We waited. 40 minutes later, a black Audi pulled up to the curb. Not the driveway, the curb, like the driver owned the place. Randall got out first. Then the passenger door opened and Loretta stepped out. Same dress she wore to the airport. No luggage. She had a key in her hand. My key. He put his hand on her back and they walked through my front door together. Darnell saw it. He did not make a sound. He just reached through the center console and held my hand. I'm 64 years old. I have buried a business partner, survived 2 recessions, and raised a daughter alone for 10 years before Loretta came into the picture. I thought I knew what a hard moment felt like. I did not know anything. I drove us to the Hampton Inn downtown. Paid cash at the front desk, got Darnell settled on the bed with the TV on low, then stepped into the bathroom and called Howard Pittman. Howard ran a private practice 2 doors down from my first shop for nearly 20 years. We had coffee together most mornings. He was the kind of doctor who still made house calls when it mattered. I told him I needed a full toxicology panel. Tonight, no hospital, no records going anywhere. He arrived within the hour with a black case and no questions. Drew blood, took a hair sample, ran the portable analyzer he used for industrial exposure cases. The machine worked quietly on the bathroom counter while I sat on the edge of the tub and listened to Darnell breathing in the next room. When the printout came through, Howard read it once and sat down on the closed toilet lid. Arsenic, Gerald, chronic exposure. Low dose, consistent over several months. Your body was being guided toward heart failure. Another few weeks and it would have looked like natural causes. I stared at the tile floor for a long time. The warm milk, every single night she watched me drink every drop. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the chair by the window while Darnell slept and I thought about every evening for the past 4 months. The milk, the pill, her hand on my shoulder. Her voice telling me to take care of myself. I thought about how many times I had looked at her face and seen a wife when I should have been seeing something else entirely. In the morning, I called Floyd Garrett. Floyd ran a private investigations firm out of Cincinnati. Not the kind you find with a Google search. I had helped him keep his business license 6 years ago, when the city tried to pull it over a paperwork dispute. He owed me, and more importantly, he was the best at what he did. I need everything you can find on a man named Randall Briggs, I told him, and I need eyes on my house at 4417 Carpenter Road starting tonight. Nobody goes in or out without you knowing. Floyd called back the next morning. What he told me made the arsenic feel like the smaller problem. 4 years ago in Louisville, Randall had run a nearly identical play. Different city, different family, same method. He got close to a widower's daughter, then got close to the widower's second wife, and slowly positioned himself to inherit through both of them. That time the man survived but lost $47,000 in a fraudulent investment scheme Randall had set up. The family never pressed charges because they were embarrassed and the paper trail was thin. Randall had found Loretta first, a networking event 18 months ago. Floyd pulled the guest list. Randall had not attended that event by accident. He had researched Loretta, researched me, and walked in knowing exactly who he was looking for. I sat with that for a while. Loretta was not the mastermind. She had been targeted and seduced by a professional, but she had still looked me in the eye every night and handed me poison in a warm glass. Whatever happened to her, she had chosen it. I made one more call that morning. Patricia Wills, my attorney, I told her to start restructuring everything. The 3 shops, the commercial properties, the joint accounts, move it all into the family LLC I had set up years ago but never activated. Freeze the joint accounts and flag them for fraud review through the bank's private client division. How fast? She asked. As fast as it can be done legally and completely, I said. I do not want a gap anywhere. Then I went home. I told Loretta I had slipped on the stairs at the hotel. Weak spell, probably the mystery illness catching up with me. I walked slow and held the railing coming in the door. She brought me to the couch and propped a pillow behind my back and said, "Poor baby," in a voice so convincing I almost doubted everything I knew. Almost. I palmed the evening pill, flushed it when she left the room. Howard came by the next morning under the cover of being my personal physician managing my recovery. He brought chelation supplies in a plain bag, and we worked on it quietly in the bedroom while Loretta was at the gym. The days that followed were the longest of my life. I sat in my own living room and watched Randall come and go like he owned the place. He would stop by in the afternoons, always with some excuse. Checking on Gerald, dropping something off for Rochelle. He would stand in my kitchen and drink my coffee and talk to Loretta in a low voice with his back half turned to me. Once he looked over his shoulder and gave me a small smile. The smile of a man who thinks he has already won. I smiled back. Darnell became my eyes and ears inside the house. We had worked out a simple system. He would sit at the kitchen table doing homework while Loretta and Randall talked, and he would text me single words from his iPad. Safe meant nothing important. Moving meant they were changing rooms. He was sharper than any adult I had ever worked with. 3 days in, the text came through that changed everything. The word was, "Bag followed by state soon." I called Floyd immediately. He already had audio from the kitchen. He played me the recording over the phone. Loretta's voice first, flat and practical like she was discussing a grocery list. "He watches everything. He has his father's eyes. I catch him staring at me, and it makes my skin crawl." Then Randall. "He is 8 years old. We report that you cannot cope with caring for a sick husband and a child at the same time. Emotional breakdown. The state will take him off your hands inside a week." Loretta. "And if he talks to a caseworker, Randall, he is 8. Tell them he makes things up for attention. You are his mother, your word is law." A pause. "Loretta, I want it done by Tuesday." I set the phone down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 40 years of building something, 40 years of showing up and doing the work and being a man my kids could count on. And these two were sitting in my kitchen deciding to throw my son into the foster system so they could spend my money without a witness in the house. That was the moment I stopped waiting and started moving. I called Patricia back. "How soon can you have the accounts frozen?" "End of business tomorrow," she said. "Do it." The next afternoon, Floyd sent me a video clip on the burner phone he had set up for our communications. Loretta was at the kitchen counter. Her phone was on speaker. She was talking to Randall, who had apparently tried to use the joint credit card at a restaurant the night before. The card had been declined. She tried her own card next, also declined. I watched her face go through 3 different expressions in about 4 seconds. Confusion first, then the start of something cold. "Gerald did this," she said. Randall's voice through the speaker. "He cannot have done it himself. He can barely get off the couch. He has a phone," she said. "He has that attorney." A long pause on Randall's end, then, "How much cash do we have in the house?" That told me everything I needed to know about where their heads were. Not worried about being caught, worried about liquidity. I almost felt something close to satisfaction watching that clip. Almost 2 days later, I called Rochelle. She was my firstborn. Raised her mostly on my own after her mother left when Rochelle was 4. She had her mother's stubbornness and my work ethic, which is a combination that makes a person either very successful or very difficult to be around. In Rochelle's case, it was both, and I was proud of every bit of it. I told her I wanted to do something right for her. Told her I had been sick, and it had made me think about what mattered. I wanted to throw a proper engagement party, not a restaurant dinner. A real one, at the house with her friends and coworkers, and the people who had watched her grow up, 60 people. The following Saturday, she cried on the phone. Happy tears, the kind that come when someone who loves you does something they did not have to do. I sat with that for a minute after I hung up. Then I called Floyd and told him to be ready. The week before the party, Randall came by twice. Both times he was cheerful and relaxed. He brought wine the second time, an expensive bottle he set on the counter like a man marking territory. He asked me how I was feeling. I told him better every day. He nodded and smiled and looked at me the way a man looks at a problem he thinks he has already solved. Saturday came gray and cool, the kind of October afternoon that smells like leaves and chimney smoke. Loretta had decorated the living room and dining area. 60 chairs, white tablecloths, flowers on every surface. She had put real effort into it. That detail bothered me more than I expected. Rochelle arrived early and helped set up. She looked good, strong. She had no idea what was coming, and I felt the weight of that every time she laughed at something across the room. Randall worked the party like a politician. Firm handshakes, eye contact, that easy laugh that made everyone feel like they were the most interesting person in the room. He made a point of standing next to me for a photo early in the evening, his arm around my shoulder, big smile for the camera. I smiled back. Dinner went the way dinners go. Conversation, clinking glasses, people getting louder as the evening moved along. I ate very little and watched everything. After the plates were cleared, I stood up at the head of the table. The room settled. Rochelle looked up at me with a full smile. Loretta raised her glass from the far end. Randall leaned back in his chair with the comfortable posture of a man who expected a toast in his honor. I want to say a few words, I said, about the man who wants to marry my daughter. I nodded to Floyd's associate standing near the doorway. The large TV on the dining room wall came on. The first thing that played was video footage from the camera Floyd had installed above the kitchen cabinet. Loretta and Randall at the kitchen table, 3 nights ago. The audio was clear through the room's speakers. Loretta's voice saying she wanted it done by Tuesday. Randall's voice explaining how to report Darnell to child services and what to tell them so no one would believe an 8-year-old. The room went completely still. I watched Rochelle's face, watched the smile fade, watched her eyes go to Randall. The second thing that played was audio only. A black screen with a sound wave moving across it. Loretta's voice from the phone recording Floyd had captured on night 2. Tonight is the last night for the old man. The medicine soaked in enough, someone at the table put their hand over their mouth. A chair scraped back somewhere behind me. Then Howard Pittman stood up from his seat near the window. He was holding a single printed page. He placed it on the table in front of the nearest guest and let it pass around the room. The toxicology report. Gerald Morrow. Arsenic. Chronic exposure. Dated. Signed. Stamped. Randall pushed back from his chair. This is fabricated. His voice came out higher than he intended. He put this together because he does not want Rochelle to move on with her life. He has always controlled her, and this is how he does it. He looked around the table for someone to agree with him. Nobody moved. Floyd had one more thing queued up. He had told me about it the night before and asked if I wanted to include it. I said yes. The TV showed a scanned document, a Louisville police report from 4 years ago. Attached to it was a signed affidavit from the man Randall had targeted in that case. A retired contractor named Vince Holloway, who had lost $47,000 and nearly lost his home before he figured out what had happened. Floyd had driven to Louisville personally to get that signature. The room read it in silence. Randall stood up fully now. His chair tipped back and caught itself on the carpet. That has nothing to do with me. That is a different person. You cannot just print someone's name on a document and call it evidence. His voice had lost the smoothness. What was underneath it was not pretty. Loretta had not said a word since the TV came on. She was sitting very still at the far end of the table with her hands flat on the white tablecloth, looking at the center of the room at nothing in particular. Her face had gone the color of old concrete. Rochelle had not looked at Randall since the first video played. She was looking at the table in front of her. Her hands were in her lap. I could see her jaw working like she was trying to find the bottom of something very deep. Randall turned to her. His voice shifted again, softer now, the version he used when he wanted something. Rochelle, look at me. You know me. You know I would never. This is your father doing what he has always done, keeping you small, keeping you dependent on him. Do not let him take this from us. Rochelle looked up. She looked at him for a long moment, long enough that the whole room held its breath. Then she reached down, took the ring off her finger, and set it on the tablecloth in front of her plate. She did not throw it. She did not say much. She just set it down flat and looked back at him. "Get out of my father's house," she said. "Get out of my life." That was the only sound in the room that mattered. Randall stared at the ring on the table. For just a second something crossed his face that might have been the real version of him, stripped of the salesmanship and the rehearsed warmth. Then it closed back over and he straightened his jacket and looked around the room one more time like he was calculating an exit. The front door opened. Terrence Busby was a detective with the Dayton Police Department, a solid man in his late 40s who had been sitting in an unmarked car outside since 7 o'clock. He came through the door with 2 uniformed officers behind him and crossed the room without any drama. He stopped in front of Randall. "Randall Briggs," he said, "you are under arrest. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. You have the right to remain silent." Randall looked at me over Terrence's shoulder. I looked back at him. I did not say anything. There was nothing left to say. The officers walked him out through the front door. The room watched in silence. A few guests near the window craned to see the unmarked car at the curb. One of the uniformed officers stayed behind near the hallway. Terrence came back inside and walked to the far end of the table where Loretta was still sitting with her hands flat on the cloth. "Mrs. Morrow," he said quietly, "I need you to come with me." She stood up slowly. She did not look at me. She did not look at Rochelle. She picked up her purse from the back of the chair out of pure habit, the way a person does when they are leaving for a normal errand, and she walked with Terrence toward the door. She stopped once just before the hallway. She turned and looked at Darnell. He was standing in the doorway to the kitchen in his pajamas. The babysitter had not managed to keep him upstairs. He had heard everything. Loretta looked at him for a moment. Whatever she was thinking, she kept it. She turned back around and walked out. The door closed. The room was quiet for a few seconds. Then somebody stood up and began collecting plates, the way people do when they do not know what else to do with their hands, and the sound of normal movement came back slowly like water filling a space. Rochelle came to where I was standing. She did not say anything for a moment. She put her head on my shoulder the way she used to when she was small and the world had been too much for one day. "I should have seen it," she said. "He was good at it." I said that was his job. She was quiet for a moment. "Did you know about Louisville before all this?" "No," I said. "Floyd found it." She nodded against my shoulder. "I want to call that man. The one from Louisville, Vince Holloway. I want to tell him it caught up to Randall. I think he would like that." I said. Darnell appeared at my side and pressed his face into my ribs. I put my hand on the back of his head. The 3 of us stood there while the guests quietly found their coats and let themselves out. Randall took a plea deal 6 weeks later, 9 years, with the Louisville affidavit factored into sentencing. His attorney tried to argue the Louisville case was unrelated and inadmissible. The judge disagreed. The attempted murder charge alone would have carried more, but the DA wanted a clean conviction over a long trial, and 9 years was enough for me. Loretta was charged separately: conspiracy to commit murder, criminal poisoning. She pleaded down to 5 years and surrendered any claim to marital assets as part of the agreement. Patricia had already made sure there was nothing left to claim. Every account, every property, every piece of the business had been moved cleanly before Loretta ever sat down with her attorney. Patricia told me afterward that Loretta's lawyer had tried 3 different angles to find something holdable. There was nothing. Patricia had closed every door before they thought to knock. I paid Patricia a bonus that made her go quiet for a moment on the phone. She had earned it. The recovery took longer than I expected. Howard managed my chelation treatment through the winter, coming by the house twice a week with his bag. By February, the dizziness was mostly gone. By April, the tremors in my hands had stopped entirely. Howard said the arsenic was out of my system. He said my heart was strong. I told him I already knew that. Rochelle threw herself into the shops the way she always throws herself into things, which is completely and without much patience for people who cannot keep up. She sat down with my operations manager the Monday after Thanksgiving, and by Wednesday she had a full quarterly plan on my desk. I read it and did not change a word. I signed the transfer papers for Shop 2 and Shop 3 before Christmas. I kept Shop 1 for myself, not because I needed to work, because I wanted to. There is something about an engine that has always made sense to me in a way that people sometimes do not. You put in the right parts, do the work correctly, and it runs. It does not lie to you. It does not smile at you while it plans something else. I set up a trust for Darnell before the end of the year, $180,000, structure to cover his education and give him a real start without handing him something he did not earn. He does not know the number. He does not need to, yet. Right now, he needs to learn how a carburetor works and how to change his own oil and how to look a man in the eye when he shakes his hand. We are working on all three. Most Saturday mornings now, Darnell sits on the red toolbox in Shop 1 while I work on a 1968 Mustang restoration I have been meaning to start for the better part of a decade. He eats whatever he brought from the house and asks questions about every single thing I do. Why does that bolt go there? What happens if you over-tighten it? Why does this engine sound different from that one? I answer every question, every one. Rochelle stops by most Saturdays around noon. She brings lunch and argues with me about the quarterly numbers and then sits on the workbench and talks to Darnell about school for half an hour before she heads back to the office. She looks like herself again, maybe more herself than she has ever been. Whatever Randall had been doing to her confidence over 2 years, she is undoing it methodically, the same way she does everything else. I watch her sometimes when she does not know I'm watching. I think about the 4-year-old I raised on my own, the one who used to fall asleep on the couch waiting for me to get home from the shop. I think about how easy it would have been for everything to go the other way. For Darnell to end up in a system that did not know his name. For Rochelle to spend years married to a man who saw her as a tool. For me to end up in a box before I had the chance to see any of this. I think about my son sitting in the back of that truck, shaking, deciding whether he was brave enough to say what he had heard. He was 8 years old. He saved my life. There are men reading this right now who have built something with their hands. A business, a home, a family, a name people in their community respect. And there's someone in their life, maybe close, maybe very close, who sees that thing they built and thinks about how to take it, not earn it, take it. I'm not telling you to be paranoid. I'm telling you to pay attention. Trust is earned over time through action, not through proximity and a good smile. The people who love you will show you. The people who do not will show you too. If you're watching, I'm still here. My daughter is running my shops better than I did. My son is handing me a 3/8 socket and getting granola crumbs on my clean workbench. That is the whole story. If this meant something to you, hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today.